Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez. Behind the scenes is Nicole Burdick, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time. Magic the Gathering is about to return once again to Innistrad, one of the game's most celebrated planes, but with 2 previous visits and some supplementary set appearances, there is a lot of history to this place. Whether you're new to Magic or just looking for a refresher before Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, this is a great time to review what happened on Innistrad. Today I'm just looking at our original trip to the plane, which started in September of 2011 and consisted of 3 sets in total. Those would be Innistrad, Dark Ascension, and Avacyn Restored. You see, back in the day, Magic would release multiple sets in a row that all took place on the same plane. So you had time to tell a story and see things change and add new mechanics and get to really explore the world that they had built. It's crazy, right? Anyway, Innistrad is a plane inspired by Gothic horror, which basically means it's Halloween every day. It's always just cold enough that you need a jacket, and the night sky is dominated by a brilliant silver moon, which ends up being almost as much of a character as it is a set piece, but more on that in a bit. The designers of Magic approached Innistrad with what we call a top-down method as opposed to bottom-up, and it would probably help if I explained what both of those meant. Top-down means you start with an idea for a card and then try to come up with mechanics to match. For example, you already decided you're doing a horror-themed plane and you're going to need some horrible things. So you make a list of all the possible monsters and you come up with an egg that hatches into a giant lizard that lives in the sewer. So then you look for ways to tell that story within a single card. Maybe it starts out as an egg, and eggs can't really attack or anything, so it's a defender with 0 power. But over time, if you feed it enough mana, eventually the egg hatches, and you get a really big creature, something worth spending all that time and mana on. That's top-down design. You just designed Ludovic's test subject. Then you have bottom-up design, where you start with the mechanics you want your card to have, and then figure out how to bring them together to create a world or tell a story. Zendikar is a great example of this. Here, the design team started with the idea that lands should matter. How do you make lands matter? Well, what if creatures cared about them entering the battlefield? How would they care? Maybe they get bigger, only for that turn. Okay, so what does a world look like in which creatures are always on the prowl for new territory, you've got lots of mana, and the landscape is constantly changing? You end up with Zendikar, where landfall triggers are a thing that usually buff up your creatures. And there you go, now you're all experts on Magic design. Sets can either be top-down or bottom-up. Both can result in awesome gameplay, so it's not like one is better than the other. They just approach things from a different direction. And Innistrad happens to be the one where they started out by thinking of all the cool monsters and locations and events that they wanted to have, and then they figured out how to make cards that reflected those ideas. Now, you can't just have a plane full of scary stuff. You need players to identify with someone vulnerable in there so they can actually feel the fear during the game. So we've got humans. Pretty easy to identify with them, honestly. On Innistrad, humans appear in every color, but they get extra attention within white and green. White represents human towns and structured society, in contrast to the unspeakable horrors of the plane, and green shows us humans who live on the outskirts, closer to nature, where they can bring the fight to the monsters. The humans get some help from benevolent spirits, also found in white, while blue holds ghosts that are more likely to haunt your mansion. Some humans are only human some of the time. When the conditions are right, they become werewolves in both red and green. The red ones are supposed to be outlaws and loners, and the green ones are supposed to be hermits and outcasts. Feeding on humans, you'll find vampires in both black and red. The black ones are more refined and aristocratic, and the red ones are a bit more bloodthirsty and aggressive. Lastly, black and blue give us the plane's zombies. Black ones are reanimated corpses, but the blue ones are reassembled corpses, often done under the watchful eye of a mad scientist. So that's our world. We've got humans facing many long, cold nights, making their stand against vampires, zombies, spirits, and werewolves. The odds seem pretty stacked against them, don't you think? Well, that's kind of where our story for the original Innistrad block begins. Keep in mind, there were no story spotlight cards during this era of Magic, so I'm just going to pick my own honorary spotlight cards and use those to try and cover the important stuff. Our story starts with the arrival of the planeswalker Liliana Vess, who has come to the plane in search of a specific demon with the goal of killing him. Before she can do that, though, she's confronted by another planeswalker, and that's Garruk Wildspeaker. These two had crossed paths before, and Liliana had put a curse on Garruk using a powerful magical artifact known as the Chain Veil. The Veil once again helped Liliana subdue Garruk, which mostly removed him from the story, but his card does get to hold the honor of being the game's first transforming planeswalker. Transforming cards made their debut on Innistrad, and they did a great job capturing humans becoming werewolves, vampires becoming bats, and eggs becoming lizard horrors, as we've already seen. But for the most part, they stuck to being just on creatures, with a few exceptions. There were some artifacts that could transform, and then there was Garruk, who would reveal the extent of the curse put on him by Liliana once he had suffered enough damage to sort of break his mental state. Now, I think this is a really well-designed card. It tells its own story. It's not overly powerful, but you can certainly build your deck to take advantage of it. And it stood out among its transforming peers by having a unique card type. Unfortunately, both in the story and in constructed formats, Garruk got absolutely tossed out of the ring by Liliana, who is back on the hunt for her demon, by the way. And why is that, exactly? Oh yes, the contract. Sometime before all of this, Liliana had made a deal with 4 demons. She would get eternal youth and beauty and power, and they would each get control over a portion of her soul, I guess? It was never made clear, really. In fact, I did a whole video on the absurdity of it all, which you can go back and check out if you haven't already. Anyway, Liliana is looking for a demon, and instead she finds a pair of sibling necromancers about to unleash their zombie army on the holy city of Thraben. That would be Gisa and Geralf, who wouldn't get their own legendary cards in this block, but their presence was certainly felt through the names and flavor text of other cards. A quick-thinking Cathar named Thalia managed to defend the city by setting half of it on fire, which consumed the zombie invaders, along with a lot of thatched roof cottages. Thalia, however, would still be named the Guardian of Thraben and continue to play an important role in the story. During the assault on the city, Geralf managed to kill a Lunarch named Mikaeus, a high-ranking member of the Church of Avacyn, tasked with protecting the humans from exactly this. Unfortunately, the powers of the church were at an all-time low, and Liliana was about to find out why. She reanimated the corpse of the fallen Lunarch and interrogated him, hoping to learn the whereabouts of her demon objective. Mikaeus, now the Unhallowed, revealed that the demon Liliana was after had been trapped inside the Hell Vault, a sort of magical prison designed to hold the plane's most dangerous threats. This is where the story starts to get a bit more complicated. The Hell Vault was created by a planeswalker named Sorin Markov. Innistrad is Sorin's home, and he considers himself its protector. Plus, the whole place just, totally fits with his look, so I get it. Anyway, Sorin is actually pretty smart. A jerk, maybe, but smart. And he realized that the people of Innistrad would stand no chance against all of the horrible things that live there, but if all the humans died, then Sorin and the rest of his vampire family tree would have nothing left upon which to feed, so they would die out too. Thus, Sorin took steps to protect the humans of the plane, or at least maintain some level of balance. To level the playing field, he created Avacyn, a guardian angel of immense power. And for many, many years, she and the other angels did a great job protecting the humans, or at least preventing them from all getting wiped out. However, even Avacyn had limits, and over time, she got tired of fighting the plane's demons. Every time she defeated one, its mana would just get recycled into another demon, so she needed a way to lock them up forever. Enter the Hell Vault, also created by Sorin. This was to act as a permanent holding cell for all the big nasties after Avacyn defeated them in one-on-one combat. Now, we didn't know this at the time, but the Hell Vault already contained the Planeswalker Nahiri, for reasons I'm not going to get into today, because we're going to talk about that when we cover what happened in Shadows over Innistrad. Okay, so we've got this Hell Vault, and we know that this awesome angel named Avacyn has been putting demons in there, and Liliana learns one demon in particular is in there, but we're still missing a piece of this puzzle. Why are the humans of the plane in such a bad spot right now? Why was Mikaeus unable to defend Thraben? I mean, where was Avacyn? Well, as it turns out, she's also in the Hell Vault. Yeah, the guardian angel for the whole plane is currently trapped inside her own prison cell. How did she get there, you might wonder? A crafty demon named Griselbrand managed to drag her down as he was sealed away himself. And guess what? That just happens to be the demon Liliana is after. To recap, Sorin created Avacyn and the Hell Vault to protect Innistrad, but Avacyn got caught in the vault herself thanks to a sucker punch from Griselbrand, the demon Liliana is currently seeking. Naturally then, the story takes us to the Hell Vault, where Liliana encounters a problem her death magic can't really solve. Black in the game is one of the weaker colors when it comes to dealing with artifacts, and it's kind of cool how the story reflects that by forcing Liliana to get creative here. Liliana comes face to face with Thalia, who is now tasked with protecting the Hell Vault after having proven her skill at Thraben. Thalia is not alone either. She's actually got a squad of elite Cathars with her, and those are the soldiers and clerics in the Church of Avacyn. That actually works out to Liliana's advantage because she's got her own little army of ghouls with her, and they're able to overwhelm the Cathars. That's when Liliana offers Thalia a deal. She promises to spare the lives of the Cathars if Thalia will surrender the Hell Vault. Thalia wisely realizes Liliana could probably kill all of her soldiers and then still find a way to get the vault open anyway, so she decides she'd rather face what's in there with her Cathars still alive, and she agrees to the deal. Now, for reasons unclear to me, the Hell Vault gets destroyed. I do not understand why Thalia had the power to break it open. It seems like Sorin would have only wanted himself to have that ability since he created it, but that's what happens. Thalia gives up the Hell Vault, and out comes everything. Avacyn is released, which the humans all really appreciate, but so is Griselbrand and a lot of other dangerous demons. And so is Nahiri, though again, we didn't know that at the time. So this is where we get the name for the final set in the block, Avacyn Restored. With their guardian angel back, the humans are able to survive the fateful hour and make their stand against the zombies, spirits, demons, and other horrors. Special attention is given to the werewolves because they're closer to still being human than any of the other monsters, which causes their families and friends to pity them more than fear them. Avacyn wasn't able to cure their affliction entirely, but she did enact what's called the Curse Mute, a wave of magic which turned the savage werewolves into the noble Wolfir, who then helped protect the humans from the remaining terrors. Liliana, meanwhile, caught up with Griselbrand and killed him. That removed the second of the 4 demons from her contract and neatly wrapped up her business on the plane. Garruk enjoyed a moment of clarity as the Curse Mute swept over him. He realized, rather than continuing to chase down Liliana and forcing her to undo the curse of the Chain Veil, he could find other forms of treatment and began hunting for answers. And that is about it. The story for the original Innistrad block was pretty self-contained, though it did have some lasting impacts that we wouldn't really learn about until much later. To recap it all, Liliana came to the plane seeking Griselbrand, but he was already sealed away inside the magical prison called the Hell Vault. In there with him was Avacyn, the plane's guardian angel, and a planeswalker named Nahiri. But that only becomes relevant when we return to the plane in Shadows over Innistrad. The vampire Sorin created the Hell Vault and Avacyn to give the humans a fighting chance against the demons, devils, zombies, spirits, werewolves, and other things that go bump in the night. Ultimately, Liliana is able to brute force the Hell Vault open and kill Griselbrand, who was one of the 4 demons that signed her contract of power. Breaking the Hell Vault also freed Avacyn, and under her protection, the human population once again was safe-ish. From everything except the number 13. Garruk was also there, and he had very little to do with the plot, but there were other characters present who had even less impact. For them, we turn to the time-honored tradition of the Mustache Minute. Ready? Here we go. Tibalt! He actually had a decent origin story in that he was originally a human who tried his hand at being a stitcher and making zombies out of dead body parts, and he found it unsatisfying. He then turned to experimenting on the living and finding out their limits for enduring pain. This attracted the attention of some smaller devils and imps, which encouraged his studies, right up until the Cathars kicked in his door to execute him. Tibalt responded by casting a spell backed by his little red friends. The resulting wave of pain magic ignited Tibalt's spark, but also twisted him into a devil himself. This version of Tibalt is usually seen as a joke. He's not very good, he's only 2 mana, and not powerful in the way that planeswalkers typically are. That said, I appreciate that Wizards of the Coast was experimenting with the boundaries of planeswalker design, and I'd rather they make mistakes like this than whatever the heck companions were supposed to be. Anyway, I know there's an animated Magic show coming to Netflix in the future, but I like to pretend I'm the casting director for a live-action movie, and so for the role of Tibalt, I would select Tom Holland. You know him as Spider-Man, but I want to see him be a villain. Tom also has a background in dance, I think, and he's a very physical performer, which should work great for Tibalt, kind of dancing around and celebrating all the pain that he's causing everyone. Also present in the set is Tamiyo, and I remember her causing a bit of debate regarding planeswalkers in general. The controversy came from the fact that she seems really, really out of place in a world inspired by Gothic horror, like distractingly so. And that makes sense because she's a moonfolk from Kamigawa, a plane based on Japanese mythology. But that is the whole point of planeswalkers. They are the connective tissue that brings the individual worlds of the multiverse together. Seeing one out of their native habitat is supposed to be jarring, and frankly, seeing a planeswalker on their home plane kind of defeats the whole point of them being a planeswalker in the first place, right? Anyway, Tamiyo is on Innistrad to study the plane's iconic moon, which we're told is made of silver, and a portion of it was used to create the Hell Vault. Silver is referenced a lot throughout Innistrad, actually, which is a great bit of world building and also plays nicely with our own expectations that silver weapons work against werewolves and other supernatural creatures. Tamiyo and the moon were sort of in the background for this visit to Innistrad, but both would become much more important when we return to the plane 5 years later. That's a story for another time. Casting Tamiyo. This is fun. I think I would give this one to Kamiko Glenn. I think she'd bring some youthful curiosity to the role, and that would work really well against the grim setting of Innistrad. Now, I don't usually cast all of the legendary creatures in a set, but if you watched the first episode of Cards and Coffee, Nicole put me on the spot to cast the characters in the thumbnail in this video. So I had told her Vin Diesel would be my pick for Griselbrand, thinking it'd be another voiceover role, maybe some motion capture, and the character done in CGI or something like that. But after thinking about it, I'd actually like to see Ron Perlman get back into the makeup chair. Seems only fair that we pick an Avacyn as well, and for that one I can't think of anyone more angelic than Angelina Jolie. Yes, she would have to spend a lot of time locked in the Hell Vault, but if you can get her on contract for the sequel, well, that's when things get really interesting. And I suppose while I'm here, I might as well give you a Sorin. Probably going to get some pushback on this one, but Tom Cruise. Yes, he's been a vampire before, but he also seems to be one in real life. So why not give him the Parasite Blade and see what he can do with it? Well, like I said, I'm not going to cast the other legends in this block, but I do want to talk about some of them. First off, the zombies, spirits, and vampires each got a legendary creature in their overlapping colors, but somehow the werewolves did not. That's crazy to me, absolutely crazy. Wizards would go on to eventually fix this, but I know a lot of werewolf fans were still unsatisfied, so hopefully Midnight Hunt will give them what they're looking for. The vampire legend, by the way, is Olivia Voldaren, who also becomes a much bigger deal with Shadows over Innistrad. She's the leader of House Voldaren, which is another bloodline, separate from Sorin and his Markov lineage. All of the vampires on this plane, though, can trace their roots back to Edgar Markov, who is Sorin's grandfather. Edgar has not yet appeared in the story, but he did get a card in Commander 2017. We don't really know what happened to him after he shared the secret of vampirism with his grandson. My theory is he's still alive, and he's the one who got Sorin out of the wall, but that's getting ahead of where I want to be for this video. Also present alongside Avacyn were 3 other legendary angels, which again gave us an incomplete cycle. The missing sister wouldn't show up until Commander Legends, which we talked about in another video, so go check that one out if you haven't already. I know the Mustache Minute is usually more full of hot takes or whatever, but the original Innistrad block is just so good. Okay, maybe Miracle and Fateful Hour were not great mechanics, and Archangel's Light is possibly the worst mythic rare ever printed, but Undying is awesome, Flashback is awesome, and Transforming cards? They're awesome. You had format-defining cards like Snapcaster Mage, Liliana of the Veil, and Cavern of Souls right next to flavor wins like Gravecrawler, Creepy Doll, and Zombie Apocalypse. Maybe I'm biased because this is when I started to get really back into Magic after college. It's also how I got my then girlfriend, now wife, to start playing too. It was the zombies that got her hooked. I think our first visit to Innistrad was special because it really had something for everyone, and I hope that trend continues this year with Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. What about you? What's your favorite part of the original Innistrad block? Even if you weren't playing then, there's probably a card or a character that you do recognize, so tell me about them in the comments. Then make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya!